In this video, I'm going to take the T-Maxx out for some fun and test out the new Dumbo RC radio system that I installed in the last video. However, before I do that, I accidentally broke the carburetor. I've got some parts that I'll be installing before we go outside and have some fun. Welcome to Adventure RC1. My name is Greg and I have been having an absolute blast creating all of this content for all of you. Thank you for everybody who's subscribing to the channel, giving the videos likes, and leaving comments down below. All right, down to business so that we can get the T-Maxx outside and start ripping. I've already pulled the old broken carburetor out. I am going to have to pull some of the good parts off of this and transfer it over to the new one. When I take a look underneath the body here, when I was checking out for any other damage, I did find that there was a broken A-arm in the back. Before I bought these A-arms, I wasn't even sure if Traxxas even still made spare parts for this T-Maxx that's nearly 20 years old. So I went out to the internet to thingiverse.com and I found a 3D print file so I could print out my own. And that's exactly what I'm going to do while I'm working on the carburetor. Is I've got my 3D printer set up off camera. I'm going to print out an A-arm and we'll check that out later on in this video. Here's the printer. It's a QIDI X-Max 3 and it has been working absolutely perfect for me. It has a beautiful color touchscreen on it, a huge build area. And if we go around to the side here, I am using a FixDry filament dryer for this PLA filament. Probably not the best application of filament for this A-arm, but it's what I've got on hand. I'm using a multicolor filament from Creality. Special thanks to Creality for sending me this filament to make today's part. Let's check out the software really quick and send the file over to the 3D printer. Here's a quick look at the software that I'm using with the 3D printer. This comes with the 3D printer. I've got my A-arm already loaded in. I already ran the slicing software that is going to basically break up the part into layers that are compatible with the 3D printer. Everything that is in green is going to be support material, making sure that the part sticks down to the build platter. Off to the side, we can see the file name that I'm using, and I also have the position of the part on the platter, and most importantly, I have the actual size of the part. This way I can take measurements off of this part and compare it to what's actually on the T-Maxx and make sure that this will fit correctly. And down in the corner, it's going to tell me how many meters of filament I'm going to use and the estimated time for this project, which is going to be about an hour, which is why we're going to be checking this out later on. I'll send this off to the printer and get the printer started. The program's now been sent out to the machine, and now it's just a matter of going into the file system and finding our part. Here it is. Gives me a nice photo of what the part's going to look like. Once again, it gives me the information of the build time, the filament I'll be using, and what type of filament I have loaded in. Everything's all set, and I can hit the start button. Just reset the print speed to 80%. The printer is measuring the flatness of the platter with a special sensor built into the print head. This is going to give me the best possible printout for this Traxxas A-arm. And we're off, and we'll check back with this in about an hour. I'll be cleaning the old parts off the carburetor with a little bit of denatured alcohol. And I'll get the new parts out with my running scissors. And now it's just a matter of taking one part off at a time and transferring it over to the new carburetor. In fact, I'm going to put some nice clean paper towel down to make sure that everything stays nice and clean. And to make sure that the alcohol doesn't dry out any of these old O-rings, I'm going to put just the tiniest dab of some oil on. got the rubber boot on and the control arm for the throttle. And I just have to finish screwing in the needle valve up to the housing. That's nice and snug. You know, in hindsight, I think what I should have done was taken a picture of this so I know the proper orientation of the control arm for the throttle and which way the fuel feed is facing on the carburetor. But no worries, it's all adjustable if I need to change it later on. Next up, I'll just get this installed on the engine using the O-rings that come with the rebuild kit. Here's one of the O-rings that fits down inside of the engine right in this area right here. So it's kind of a good thing that that carburetor broke, because it'd be bad if one of these pieces fell inside of the engine. Here's where that broken O-ring was installed. The new one took a little bit of time and patience to get installed, but everything's all set for the carburetor to be reinstalled. And just like that, the carburetor is installed and I'm ready to fuel up and take this T-Maxx out for a rip and check out the new radio system I installed from the last video. Let's check out the printer before we head outside. Remember, I'm only running at 80% speed, and just check out how fast this thing is running. It's definitely starting to look like an A-arm for a T-Maxx. Oh, no more fuel. It's finally warm outside and it was great to be outside running the T-Maxx. It was mostly fun because honestly, this took a lot longer to retune that carburetor than I was expecting. And I think near the end of the run, I finally figured it out once I had the body off of the truck and I saw that I had a lot of oil spray down the side of the engine. In my haste to get outside and run, I didn't put a zip tie on the gasket for the tune pipe, and I think when I was going at high speeds, I was blowing out exhaust and oil over the side of the engine, which also, of course, affects the tune. Overall, though, the Dumbo RC did everything I needed it to do. I had great control over the T-Maxx and I had great range, and not once did I see or hear any of the servos start twitching the way they did with the stock radio system. That stock radio system, again, was 20 years old and it was still running on the AM frequency band. The steering servo that I replaced in the last video is doing an awesome job. It's got way more power and a bit more speed over the stock servo, and now the T-Maxx actually goes where I point it. While we were outside, the 3D printer finished up. Let's check that out. Here's the part still on the platter, and I can see that it unfortunately warped a little bit. Let me get this cleaned up and we'll take a look at the 3D printed A-arm for the T-Maxx. Now here's a factory replacement. Here's the one I 3D printed. Looks a little bit different right here. I think that actually adds a bit more strength when I put them on top of one another. I think it looks dead on. Flip it over this way. It looks like this part here is a little bit beefier over the stock factory one. When it comes to strength, I mean, factory strength has a little bit of give and flex to it, which makes these resistant to breaking. This one made out of PLA, which is standard filament for a 3D printer. This too has a little bit of a give to it, and it feels pretty strong actually. I think this would work perfectly if, or actually when, I go to replace the A-arm in the T-Maxx minus the slight warp that I've got. One of the cool things about having a 3D printer is this one costs well under $1 to print. Meanwhile, the factory one, this 2-pack, costs $7.50. As a part of this series, I'm keeping track of how much money I have to spend to get this T-Maxx up and running. I'm going to have the running tally up in the corner. The Dumbo RC radio is working perfect for the T-Maxx. If you're wondering what I'm doing with the radio gear that I pulled out of the T-Maxx, I've got a plan for that. It's temporarily going to go into my other rebuild project, the HPI Savage 25. The previous video on this kit, I started the engine up and it ran, so that gives me 2 thumbs up to continue to rebuild this and put it in a runnable state, just like I'm doing with this traxxas T-Maxx. Now that I see both the HPI and the T-Maxx side by side, I'm really digging the looks of the HPI Savage. I had a blast making this video for all of you today. Don't forget to give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, or ring that notification bell. Not only does it help this channel grow, it's an excellent way to connect video content like this with other RC enthusiasts just like yourselves. Well, until I see you again in the next video, keep on rolling.